Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever awakened suddenly between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. and wondered why your soul refuses to sleep during the very hours when the world is most silent? There are nights when a man suddenly awakens between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. with no clear reason at all. The house is silent. The world outside seems asleep. Yet something within feels strangely awake. Many dismiss these moments as restlessness, worry, or habit. But what if these early morning hours carry a deeper meaning? What if this is the very moment when the soul becomes quiet enough to hear what it could not hear during the noise of the day? In these sacred hours, the mind is softer, calmer, and far more open to impression. The burdens of the outer world are weaker. The imagination becomes more alive. And often, without realizing it, a person stands at the doorway of inner transformation. The answers they have been searching for may already be trying to rise within them. The desire they have prayed for may already be seeking expression through feeling and assumption. There is a reason ancient men and women treasured the stillness before dawn. It is during these hours that fear loosens its grip and the unseen world feels nearest. The heart speaks more clearly. Intuition becomes stronger. The soul begins whispering truths the busy world cannot hear. So if you often wake during these hours, do not ignore it too quickly. Something within you may already be moving toward a new state of life. And if this message speaks to you, remain until the end. For what you discover tonight may change the way you see these moments forever. There is something most unusual about the hours before dawn. A man may awaken suddenly and look upon the clock only to find it resting somewhere between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. The room is still. The world outside has grown quiet. Even the noise of daily life seems far away for a little while. And in that silence, something within begins to stir. It is often during these sacred hours that the mind becomes less crowded with fear, struggle, and outer distraction. The imagination grows softer, more vivid, and strangely alive. One begins to feel as though the unseen world is nearer than before. During the busy hours of the day, most men live entirely through appearances. They look at conditions, troubles, delays, and disappointments as though these things possess final authority. But in the stillness before sunrise, the soul becomes less bound to what the eyes can see. The heart grows receptive. Feeling becomes stronger than reason. And this is important because life does not move according to outward appearances first. It moves according to the inward state quietly accepted within consciousness. These early morning moments allow a person to enter the feeling of already being what they desire to become. In this relaxed condition, it becomes easier to imagine peace if one has lived in worry, abundance if one has lived in lack, or love if one has lived in loneliness. The mind no longer struggles as fiercely against the assumption. For a brief while, the invisible feels more natural than the visible. And what a man consistently feels to be true within himself begins, in time, to shape the world around him. Many have received comfort, direction, and even transformation during these silent hours without fully understanding why. They believed it was chance. Yet nothing about consciousness is accidental. The thoughts that rise, the feelings that awaken, and even the strange timing of these moments may reveal that something deeper is already moving beneath the surface of life. And this is where many fail to understand what is truly taking place. Because what appears random to the outer mind is often the result of unseen assumptions already at work within. Most people pass through life believing that events happen by chance. They think certain moments are meaningless, certain feelings are random, and certain awakenings during the night hold no importance at all. Yet the deeper truth is this: consciousness is always moving according to what is secretly accepted within. Every assumption entertained repeatedly, every feeling impressed upon the mind, and every inner conviction begins shaping the experiences a person later calls reality. Nothing appears outwardly that has not first taken root inwardly. When a man wakes suddenly between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., he may believe it is only habit or coincidence. But many times, something deeper is taking place beneath the surface of awareness. There may be an unseen movement already unfolding within consciousness itself. A new state may be pressing for expression. An old belief may be weakening. A desire long held within the heart may be drawing nearer into visible form. These moments often arrive when the soul is attempting to bring attention toward what the outer world has distracted a man from hearing. The trouble is that most people trust appearances more than inner movement. If the outer world still looks unchanged, they assume nothing is happening. But creation always begins invisibly. A seed planted beneath the earth gives no immediate evidence of life. Yet beneath the soil, something is already unfolding in silence. So it is with consciousness. The unseen assumption accepted within eventually hardens into visible fact, though for a season there may appear to be no sign at all. This is why one must be careful what is accepted during these quiet hours before dawn. Fear, worry, and despair also impress themselves deeply upon consciousness when the mind is receptive. If a man rises during these hours only to dwell upon lack, loneliness, or failure, he waters the very conditions he wishes to escape. But if he deliberately turns inward and assumes peace, abundance, guidance, or fulfillment, he begins moving into harmony with a different state entirely. For in the silence of early morning, the mind becomes unusually fertile. What is imagined repeatedly during those moments enters deeper into the subconscious and takes stronger root. And this is why the stillness before dawn carries such unusual power. Because when the noise of the world fades away, manifestation itself becomes clearer, stronger, and far more alive within the imagination. There is a reason the early morning hours feel different from every other part of the day. Before the sun rises, before the voices of the world begin demanding attention, a rare stillness covers the mind. During these moments, a man is no longer pulled so strongly by the troubles of the outer world. The noise quiets, the pressure softens, and for a little while, imagination becomes freer to move without interruption. This is why the hours before dawn carry such unusual power for inner transformation. Most people attempt to change their lives while remaining completely consumed by outward conditions. They look constantly at what is missing, what has failed, or what appears delayed. Yet whatever receives steady attention begins taking deeper root within consciousness. The mind reproduces inwardly what it continuously contemplates outwardly. But in the silence of early morning, attention can be withdrawn from appearances and placed upon the desired state instead. A man can sit quietly and feel himself already at peace, already prosperous, already loved, already guided. And the calmer the mind becomes, the more natural that assumption begins to feel. This is the great secret many overlook. Manifestation is strengthened not by force, strain, or desperate effort, but by inward acceptance. A restless mind struggles because it keeps asking when, how, and whether the desire will arrive. But a still mind enters the feeling that it is already done. During these quiet hours, the subconscious becomes far more impressionable because resistance weakens. The outer world loses some of its hold, and the unseen state within begins planting itself more deeply into consciousness. There are moments before dawn when imagination feels almost alive with reality. One can picture the desired life with greater clarity and emotional depth. The scene feels near rather than distant, and what is repeatedly felt with conviction eventually shapes the conditions of life itself. For consciousness does not distinguish greatly between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. What it accepts as true inwardly, it works to express outwardly in time. Yet many fail to notice what else happens in these silent hours. Along with peaceful assumptions and inner vision, something else often begins to emerge quietly from within. Ideas appear suddenly. Answers arrive without effort. Thoughts rise that seem wiser than ordinary thinking. It is as though the mind becomes open to guidance it could not hear during the noise of the day. And those who pay close attention soon discover that inspiration often visits when the soul becomes truly receptive. There are moments in life when an answer appears so suddenly and so clearly that it feels as though it came from somewhere beyond ordinary thought. A man may struggle with a problem for weeks, searching endlessly for direction, only to awaken during the silent hours before dawn, and suddenly know exactly what to do. The solution arrives quietly, without strain. The feeling is gentle, yet certain. This is because the mind, when relaxed and receptive, becomes open to impressions that are often buried beneath the noise and pressure of daily living. Throughout the day, most people think from a state of tension. Their minds are crowded with worry, fear, duties, and endless distraction. Because of this, they cannot hear the deeper movement taking place within consciousness. But during the early morning hours, something changes. The conscious mind loosens its grip. Resistance weakens. And in that softened condition, inspiration begins to rise naturally to the surface. Ideas that once seemed hidden suddenly become visible. Desires become clearer. Inner knowing grows stronger. Many fail to understand that imagination is not merely fantasy. It is one of the deepest creative powers given to man. What is accepted inwardly through feeling and vivid mental impression begins shaping the path ahead. And often, before an outer change appears, inspiration comes first. A sudden urge to move in a new direction. A quiet certainty about a decision. A powerful image of the life one is meant to live. These impressions may appear simple at first, yet they carry tremendous power when acted upon faithfully. The tragedy is that many people dismiss these moments too quickly. The reasoning mind immediately begins doubting what the heart quietly received. Fear argues against inspiration. Logic demands proof before movement. And so the very guidance meant to lead a man into a greater state of life becomes ignored and forgotten by morning. Yet those who learn to trust these inner impressions often discover that the unseen world was preparing the way long before outward evidence appeared. For the soul rarely shouts, it whispers. And those whispers are easiest to hear when the world falls silent before dawn. But there is a danger many never recognize. Most people awaken during these sacred hours only to force themselves back into sleep again, never realizing they may be turning away from the very guidance trying to reach them. There are many who awaken during the quiet hours before dawn and immediately try to escape the moment. They turn over, close their eyes tightly, and force themselves back into sleep, as though the awakening itself were a disturbance. Yet, what if these moments are not interruptions at all? What if something deeper within is attempting to draw attention toward a new direction, a new understanding, or a new state of consciousness already seeking expression? The world has trained men to trust noise more than silence. People rush through life, listening constantly to the opinions of others, the demands of daily survival, and the endless pressure of outward appearances. But the inner voice rarely competes with noise. It speaks softly. It arrives quietly through feeling, intuition, imagination, and sudden knowing. And because most people never become still long enough to listen, they continue missing the very guidance capable of changing their lives. During these sacred hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., the conscious mind is less defensive. The barriers created by fear and constant reasoning begin to weaken, and often beneath the silence, an inner calling begins to rise. A man may suddenly feel the urge to change his life, forgive someone, pursue a dream, leave behind an old condition, or finally assume something greater for himself. These impressions do not arrive by accident. They emerge because consciousness is always attempting to move toward the state most deeply accepted within. Yet many ignore these promptings because they appear too simple, too uncertain, or too impossible according to the outer world. The reasoning mind demands visible proof before belief. But inner transformation never begins with proof. It begins with assumption. It begins with feeling. The man who learns to trust the quiet movements within himself often discovers that life begins rearranging itself in ways he could never fully predict. What first appeared as a subtle impression during the stillness of dawn slowly becomes reality expressed in visible form. This is why these awakenings should not be feared or dismissed carelessly. There may be wisdom trying to reach you before the distractions of the day return. There may be guidance attempting to lead you out of an old state and into a new one. But to receive it clearly, the mind cannot remain restless or troubled. A disturbed mind turns even sacred moments into confusion. And this is why one must first learn the art of becoming calm, still, and inwardly grounded before the deeper message can truly be understood. Before a man can clearly receive guidance from within, he must first quiet the storm within himself. Many awaken during the early morning hours, carrying restless thoughts, fear about the future, regret from the past, or anxiety over present conditions. In such a state, the mind becomes crowded and confused. And when the mind is disturbed, even the clearest inner message becomes difficult to recognize. This is why calmness is not merely comfort. It is preparation. It is the doorway which deeper understanding quietly enters consciousness. The world constantly trains people to react, to hurry, to fear, to struggle endlessly against appearances. But inner transformation does not happen through force. It happens through relaxed acceptance and inward stillness. During those sacred hours before dawn, one should resist the urge to immediately fill the mind with worry or distraction. Instead, remain still for a few moments. Breathe slowly. Let the body relax. Allow the racing thoughts to settle like dust, falling gently to the ground. For when the outer agitation fades, the deeper self begins to rise more clearly into awareness. There is great power in a peaceful state of mind. A calm mind becomes receptive. Imagination flows more naturally. Intuition becomes sharper. The desired state can be entered with greater ease because resistance weakens. One no longer feels separated from peace, abundance, or guidance. Instead, the feeling begins to arise that these things are already near, already possible, perhaps already unfolding invisibly. And what is calmly accepted inwardly often impresses itself far more deeply upon consciousness than thoughts born from desperation or fear. Many people make the mistake of trying too hard during these moments. They strain to receive signs. They force mental pictures. They demand immediate answers. Yet truth rarely arrives through tension. It arrives softly when the mind becomes willing to receive instead of struggle. The stiller a man becomes, the more sensitive he grows to subtle impressions, quiet feelings, and inward knowing that would otherwise go unnoticed in a restless condition. And often, after the mind has grown peaceful and receptive, something unexpected begins to happen. Thoughts emerge naturally. Certain feelings become stronger. Images, ideas, or impressions rise quietly from the depths of consciousness itself. But these moments are delicate. If ignored or doubted at too quickly, they may vanish before morning. This is why what comes through during these sacred hours should never be dismissed carelessly. Because the subconscious often speaks in whispers that must be captured before the noise of the world returns again. There are thoughts that arrive from ordinary daily thinking, and then there are impressions that seem to come from a far deeper place within. During the quiet hours before dawn, many people experience sudden feelings, vivid ideas, strange certainty, or powerful mental images that appear almost out of nowhere. These moments often pass quickly, like a whisper moving through the silence. And because they do not arrive through logic or careful reasoning, many dismiss them before realizing their value. Yet some of the most life-changing guidance a man may ever receive comes softly through feeling rather than force. The subconscious mind does not speak in the same manner as the outer intellect. It communicates through symbols, intuition, impressions, emotions, and inward knowing. A man may suddenly awaken with the feeling that something wonderful is about to happen. Another may receive a clear image of the life he secretly longs to live. Someone else may feel an overwhelming urge to begin again, forgive the past, or move boldly toward a new direction. These impressions often carry unusual emotional weight, because they emerge from a deeper level of consciousness, where imagination and belief quietly shape future experience. This is why it is wise to keep paper nearby during these sacred hours. The mind, once fully awakened by the duties and distractions of the day, often forgets what was received during the silence of dawn. What felt clear and powerful at 3 a.m. may seem distant by morning if it is not captured immediately. Many have lost precious guidance simply because they doubted it too quickly, or trusted the reasoning mind more than the quiet conviction within. There is also something mysterious that occurs when these impressions are written down. The act itself gives form to the unseen. A vague feeling becomes clearer. A fleeting vision becomes more real. What was once hidden within imagination begins taking shape within consciousness more firmly. And what is repeatedly accepted and emotionally impressed upon the mind slowly moves toward expression in the outer world. This is why one must guard against immediate doubt. Fear and overthinking have destroyed many beautiful beginnings before they ever had the chance to grow. For not every truth arrives with thunder. Some arrive gently in silence, asking only to be trusted long enough to unfold. And often, hidden within these quiet impressions, lies the very answer a man has searched for endlessly outside himself. Because the deeper wisdom he seeks may not come from another person, another sign, or another circumstance at all. It may already exist within his own consciousness, waiting patiently to rise into awareness when he becomes still enough to receive it. Most people spend their entire lives searching outside themselves for what can only truly be found within. They search for certainty in other people, direction in circumstances, and peace in future events that have not yet arrived. They believe the outer world must first change before they can finally feel secure, fulfilled, or complete. Yet the deeper truth is that every outer condition begins first as an inner state accepted within consciousness. The answers a man seeks are often hidden beneath the noise, fear, and distraction that keep him separated from his own inner knowing. This is why the silent hours before dawn are so powerful. During these moments, the outer world loosens its grip upon the mind. The pressure of appearances weakens, and a man becomes more capable of hearing the deeper movement already taking place within himself. Many awaken during these hours carrying questions about life, love, money, purpose, or direction. Yet instead of becoming still long enough to listen inwardly, they immediately search outside themselves for reassurance. They look for signs, opinions, and proof while ignoring the quiet wisdom already trying to rise within their own consciousness. The strange thing is that the answer often appears only after the struggle stops. When fear quiets, clarity begins to emerge naturally. A feeling of peace replaces confusion. A new understanding rises unexpectedly. Sometimes the solution comes as a simple impression. Other times it arrives through imagination, sudden certainty, or a calm assumption that everything is already unfolding correctly, even before outward evidence appears. This is because consciousness responds not merely to words, but to deeply accepted states of feeling. A man who continually assumes fear, lack, and hopelessness will continue seeing life through those conditions. But the one who begins assuming peace, guidance, abundance, and fulfillment inwardly starts moving into harmony with an entirely different experience. What is accepted within eventually shapes what is experienced without. And during these sacred hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., the subconscious becomes unusually receptive to these inner assumptions because the mind is quieter and more open than at any other time of day. So if you awaken again during these silent hours, do not fear the stillness. Do not rush to escape it. Sit quietly for a moment and listen inwardly. For perhaps the very thing you are praying for is already nearer than you realize. Perhaps the life you seek has already begun forming invisibly within consciousness itself. And perhaps these strange awakenings are not disturbing your sleep at all. Perhaps they are gently awakening you to the power that has been within you all along. So perhaps these awakenings between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. are not interruptions at all. Perhaps they are invitations. Invitations to become still. Invitations to listen. Invitations to step away from the noise of the outer world, long enough to remember the power already resting within consciousness. The world teaches men to search endlessly outside themselves for answers, signs, and direction. Yet many discover, often in the quiet before dawn, that the greatest guidance does not arrive from the world at all. It rises gently from within. In the silence, fears become weaker. Assumptions become clearer. Imagination awakens, and a man begins to sense that life may be responding to him more deeply than he once believed. If you awaken during these hours again, do not rush to dismiss the moment. Sit quietly for a little while. Breathe slowly. Feel peace instead of panic. Imagine the life you desire as though it were already true. Listen carefully to the thoughts and feelings that arise naturally within you. For many times, the very answer you have searched for during the day may come softly in the stillness of the night. The unseen world speaks most clearly when the outer world becomes silent. And perhaps tonight, while the world sleeps, your new life is already beginning. This is why the silent hours before dawn are so powerful. During these moments, the outer world loosens its grip upon the mind. The pressure of appearances weakens, and a man becomes more capable of hearing the deeper movement already taking place within himself. Many awaken during these hours carrying questions about life, love, money, purpose, or direction. Yet instead of becoming still long enough to listen inwardly, they immediately search outside themselves for reassurance. They look for signs, opinions, and proof while ignoring the quiet wisdom already trying to rise within their own consciousness. The strange thing is that the answer often appears only after the struggle stops. When fear quiets, clarity begins to emerge naturally. A feeling of peace replaces confusion. A new understanding rises unexpectedly. Sometimes the solution comes as a simple impression. Other times it arrives through imagination, sudden certainty, or a calm assumption that everything is already unfolding correctly, even before outward evidence appears. This is because consciousness responds not merely to words, but to deeply accepted states of feeling. A man who continually assumes fear, lack, and hopelessness will continue seeing life through those conditions. But the one who begins assuming peace, guidance, abundance, and fulfillment inwardly starts moving into harmony with an entirely different experience. What is accepted within eventually shapes what is experienced without. And during these sacred hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., the subconscious becomes unusually receptive to these inner assumptions because the mind is quieter and more open than at any other time of day. So if you awaken again during these silent hours, do not fear the stillness. Do not rush to escape it. Sit quietly for a moment and listen inwardly. For perhaps the very thing you are praying for is already nearer than you realize. Perhaps the life you seek has already begun forming invisibly within consciousness itself. And perhaps these strange awakenings are not disturbing your sleep at all. Perhaps they are gently awakening you to the power that has been within you all along. So perhaps these awakenings between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. are not interruptions at all. Perhaps they are invitations. Invitations to become still. Invitations to listen. Invitations to step away from the noise of the outer world, long enough to remember the power already resting within consciousness. The world teaches men to search endlessly outside themselves for answers, signs, and direction. Yet many discover, often in the quiet before dawn, that the greatest guidance does not arrive from the world at all. It rises gently from within. In the silence, fears become weaker. Assumptions become clearer. Imagination awakens, and a man begins to sense that life may be responding to him more deeply than he once believed. If you awaken during these hours again, do not rush to dismiss the moment. Sit quietly for a little while,